to accept and dive into my wounds and find how they are exposing the most beautiful qualities that want to come through me, through my ancestral lineage. So I've been doing lots of work around healing myself in the present moment and seeing how the ripple effects actually go beyond the space and time. And so I love to work with women who are learning to do the same, love themselves, move their bodies through it all, love their bodies, as well as helping parents guiding their children through that process as well. So that's the crux of what I do. And the work that I do with Shophar is working with the couples to do that for themselves and then be able to do that for their children as well.
Yeah, fantastic. Wow.
Amen.
Wow.
And
Mother, yourself?
myself, I like to say I'm like a breath poet. That incorporates two of the things that I love to do, Qigong, so breath work, and then poetry. And I like to say that I help people to make their breath rhyme. So make the inhale and the exhale to rhyme so that we find the harmony and health. That's the poetry of life.
Beautiful.
Oh, fantastic. So
Tell us how, I'd like to hear your love story. I'm sure Suzanne would as well. Tell us about
I love it.
how did you meet? What was the spark and, what got you together?
You do it, Sho.
Me?
Yeah.
I
like to hear you say it.
Of course you do. To see if I'm a mess up.
Better get the details right, buddy.
Throw down some breath poetry for us now.
Right. Well, 2016, a couple of friends of mine, we went to a dance studio for Afro-Cuban dance class. And so went in there, had a good time, and we were leaving. And I noticed, Kirti, I didn't know her at the time. I saw her come in, and I was like, oh, hello. And so right away, I was like, okay, I'm gonna try to talk to her. At the time, I wasn't dating anyone or, just kind of open and everything. So I was like, I'm gonna go shoot my shot. And she was actually talking to someone, like it was another young lady there. And so I was waiting for my time a little patiently and waiting. And then I realized, oh, okay, she senses that I'm trying to talk to her and she's not coming out the conversation. So she's not making an opening. So I was like, okay, take the hint, keep it moving. and so fast forward a year and a half later.
Wow. Okay.
And I actually had made a mental note that I was going to go back to that studio one day to try to talk to her, but it never happened. So a year and a half later, in fall of 2017, matter of fact, around Halloween, I posted a picture from Halloween. I was dressed up as Jimi Hendrix. So you can't tell me when I picked my hair up, and,
I can see that. I can see that. I can see that.
Me and Richard Pryor, we all in the same facial structure. We all the same family. And so we so I posted the picture, had a guitar, the headband, the afro, and guess who liked it? This is on Instagram, and we're not friends, but we know some mutual people, I guess. I didn't know that. And
I'm a super serious Hendrix fan. So I was like, wow, what an awesome costume. And like, he really looks like Kim. So I just posted on it like, wow, I really love that costume, which was very sincere.
It was.
Yeah.
It was. And so, and right away I was like, oh, that's her from the studio, And so I went on her page, I did the check to see if there was any other masculine energy on in the area, And I saw way down in the feed, and I saw a haircut, and I know that usually might be like, oh, a change, So I was doing my little detective work. And so I went on and reached out to her. And the rest, it just flowed from there.
We talked back and forth for maybe a good month, trying to invite each other or see each other and connect, and kept inviting each other to different events. And then eventually, I think he reached out. Actually, what he said was, he had reached out and said something like, oh, I remember you from the dance studio. And that caught my eye, where I was like, oh, because, a lot of people reach out on social media and you get all sorts of people that are trying to get your attention, but that he said that he remembered me from a dance studio, caught my eye, and he just said something really sweet and endearing, like, oh, I regret not being able to talk to you then. Who knows, maybe now. And then I just remember writing back, oh, it's never too late, brother. And then we started going back and forth, and then we eventually went to a drum circle together. And for me, that was very rare to like have a brother, specifically African-American brother, reach out and be open to do some of the hippie shit that I do. I'm kind of a hippie, I grew up in a Hindu family, somewhat Hindu, but my mom left the temple when I was about 10, and we got deep into self-realization fellowship and studying Paramahansa Yogananda. So, just being an American, growing up in America, I think I went more along the hippie route as a spiritualist because of my mom's shift in religion. And so it was cool that he was like, wanted to come with me, or he actually invited me to a drum circle. And I know that I was like hesitant for a second. I was like, what am I doing? Should I be doing this? And one of my girlfriends, she just said, when is the last time a brother wanted to take me to a drum circle? We're not going to a club. We're not going to some of the quote unquote typical things. And I was like, that's a really good point. She's like, he must be unique in some way. Like, why not just be open, And for me, honestly, hitting on the interracial piece, Shophar is not the first brother that I've dated, and I've definitely put my family through the ringer every single time. And I've tried to, I had been trying to get married for about 20 years in long relationships back to back since I was 16. Just trying to figure that out. And, each time my parents were like, okay, now will you do, now do Shopee.com. Now will you meet this boy? And now will you, do the typical Indian practices, and every time I'll be like, okay, yeah, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to really try. And then before I know, somebody else would come in, and then I'd be like, well, I'm really happy doing this. And
right,
going back and forth. So when I was like, what am I doing if I go out with this guy? What if everything is good? What if everything is exactly what I want it to be? And then I'm going to have to come home again. And my family, not my family, but really my parents' heart, that they want to do this traditional, finally thinking that, okay, she's getting it, that, the love marriage thing isn't always the best thing. But they see that I'm super happy, and they really do love Shophar. They're really getting to know him. And so I think it was a good choice.
Nice.
Yeah.
Beautiful. Beautiful. That's great. So then, Shophar, what about your parents? What about your family and Kirti and Kirti's family? How'd that go?
Oh, it's been good. So, I mean, I think in the last month, it's been like a slow, thing, but we've done some pretty deep things together. So we went to an event last year in 2019. She took her mom, I took my mom, and it was for mother wounds, and so we did that together, and that was pretty profound.
Yeah.
Pretty profound. We were the only ones there with our actual mothers, and there was a lot of people in the room, and doing some deep breath work and everything together. So we've already had some pretty profound things as a family, together. And
I've been able to, do biofield tuning on his mom, and do distance energy work. And Shophar has gone to my parents' house and done Qigong with them. So I think I've learned, for me, what the approach is that really works. And honestly, to really bring it home, I really realized that it's not about, my parents accepting me and my choices. It's really about me accepting me and my choices boldly and unreservedly. And
that's like a quotable.
Yeah, showing who I really am. And that has probably been the best part of it. And just, being willing to be bold. And it's not just about who I date, but it's also the life that I lead. And the more that I'm able to share those intimate parts of myself with my parents as they get older, they're also realizing, wow, we didn't do so much of that with you. We can see why maybe you were so held back growing up. So there's been a lot of beautiful family healing that's come out of my choice in love, to choose love.
Wow. Beautiful.
I'll have to say I'm very curious with biracial couple that's been together now for, you know, over 30 years, you know, any words of wisdoms, best practice, like, do you have anything that y'all could share with us on that journey?
Well, how long do you have?
Suzanne, why don't you
Here for days. What's that, Satyen?
why don't you share from, you know, a little bit about what we went through and some of the original challenges we went through with our families, and how we persisted through this. But you know, Kirti, you nailed it when you said it wasn't about at first, because Suzanne and I really tried to get our parents' acceptance with our relationship. Back then, 30 years ago, it was way less accepted
Oh, yes.
to have an Indian and Jamaican relationship. You know, all the prejudice, all the restrictions, all the stuff in between. It was immense, actually, to be you know, very real with you, very immense and very intense, because we both come from very traditional families. But you nailed it when you said, until I came to the point, we came to the point where we were willing to accept that this is the way we're going to go. This is the relationship I wish to have, we wish to have. So Suzanne, please share about that. That's very, very, she's got some very deep lessons in this to share.
Yeah, thank you, Satyen. There's so much to this. There's so much richness, actually, that's possible. And so for us, you know, in the very beginning, like Satyen said, we had our challenges because of being from two different worlds. Satyen from the East, me from the West. And I don't know how to say it, but the parents were worried on both sides. They were like, well, they've lived their lives. You know, they've also had their experiences, and they look in and they see, you know, what could possibly go wrong. And to, you know, to be fair to them, first of all, Satyen and I were the firstborn of this family. Okay. We're the firstborn. We're the first ones for the next generation. And they saw us as, you know, these were their hopefuls. And they raised us both in a certain way. And as Satyen said, very traditional. So Satyen was raised in a very traditional Hindu background. And I was raised in a very traditional Catholic background, you know. And although for me, coming from a Jamaican background, we're a melting pot in Jamaica. We've got everybody there, you know, all the different cultures are there and everything. But then coming to Canada, we had a certain way that we lived when we lived in Jamaica. You know, my father was a politician, a lawyer, a judge, all of that. So he had a certain status from where we came from. So when we moved to Canada now, under different circumstances where he didn't have the position that he had, we moved to Canada, then to meet with Satyen's family, who also, they came from, you know, they came from a very, you know, they worked hard. They came from, how do you say, Satyen, speak about your family. They came from people who had been through a hard time in Uganda. So they didn't come from India, they came from Uganda, and Kampala, Uganda, right? And so what happened is their family was sort of driven out of Africa from basically what they saw Black people, right? So they had to leave everything to come to Canada, and they were dealing with Black people for that. So they had, you know, there were so many things that happened through their life that had them go, you know, these are not people that we need to trust, and all of that. And plus we're raising our son as Hindu.
Yeah.
So you have these two families trying to give the best they can for their children. And, you know, the last thing they want is for these two worlds to come together out of fear, you know. And really, at our wedding, my father made a speech, and you know, this was at the Indian wedding. Now we had two weddings, so we had the Catholic wedding on one day and the Indian wedding on the other day. It was wild. It was fun, actually, really fun. But on the Indian, the Indian wedding, when speeches are made, nobody's really listening. I mean, they're eating, they're talking, right? No one's really listening. You're talking away, no one's really listening. But when my father spoke, you could have heard a pin drop, because he began the speech with, well, I didn't really think that these two would make it. And all of a sudden, everyone stopped. They're like, what is he about to say?
Oh, no.
You know?
And he's a lawyer and a judge and a politician, so he's very
he's very articulate, and he's very, you know, he paces the way that he speaks, but he's dropping a bomb here. And he's saying, I did not think that they would make it, but what these two have shown us, shown this family, is that love transcends everything. Love really transcends everything. And the mother, Satyen's mom, who from the very beginning was very afraid, both parents, but she was very afraid of what could happen. She turned to me on our wedding day and she said, I love you, you're my daughter now. And, you know, even when I say this today, tears, you know, it wells up inside of me, but it was, if you rewind, what it actually was the choice that we made to come together and after all odds, be together and move forward, respecting our families, loving our families all along, but continuing to go forward together and cleave together. And if there's anything that I would say, it would be cleave together under all costs, no matter what is going on in the world.
And Suzanne's been an amazing demonstration of that throughout all these years. We have a policy, we have a vow, and that's no back door. Meaning there's no hidden back door. If she does, I do this, shit goes on. You know, they can be in the subconscious mind, a little exit strategy. And we decided, what if we wall up, paste up, so there's no subconscious exit strategy? Whatever shit, challenge, upset, turmoil, family dynamic stuff we got to work out, we have to work it out. We can't take the escape clause because there's no escape clause. And at first it feels like stifling, but when we took it on as a sadhana, as a spiritual practice, you know, in our work, we talk about 3 stages. Me stage, which is trying to take care of ourselves, we, and then for the greater all. And we, Suzanne and I, what's kept us strong for 30 years is, what are we here to do together that transcends what we're here to do individually? In other words, how can I serve her? How can she serve me? So that we're serving each other's evolution beyond what we can achieve individually. And knowing that that serving of her serving of my evolution, my highest vision, me serving her for her highest vision, is for the greater good.
Yeah.
So Shophar, Kirti, that's what we have to share with you. That I truly believe that you both are magical, profoundly powerful beings in your own right, but together you're even more powerful, and that you have a higher calling, a vision, a divine calling to serve in a way that you're just scratching the surface of. So nourish that, flourish that, support each other's evolution, be dedicated to him, be dedicated to her, more than just what you about know, but to be dedicated to each other's soul and the soul's unfoldment. So that's what I have to share.
That's quite a blessing from both of you. It's like a transmission. We received that right there.
Big time.
Yeah, wow.
Beautiful.
Well, that's a really big part of just purposeful relating, you know, because like I said, this isn't the first interracial relationship I've been in. Actually, I haven't had the opportunity to date within my own race. That wasn't by choice. It's just it didn't unfold that way. And I have to say that in all of that, there's always been the family challenges, right? That they didn't stop. However, it really also, there is a unique formula, a unique code within humanity of, you know, sometimes what I noticed was, because I hadn't really done the self-work as an Indian growing up in America in terms of my identity and, you know, just the first generation American, and, you know, where I grew up was a really unique setup. that I had to do that work so that I could be in the stage where it was like, wait, this is my life. I need to individuate here. And me individuating is actually going to allow my parents to understand a concept that they have yet to experience, right? Usually we accept things after we have the experience. We can decide how it lands for us. But my parents, it had seemed like, hadn't seen enough positive interracial relationships. In fact, my nephew he's double. I don't like saying half. He's double Jamaican and Indian. My nephew.
Woo!
Lucky
him.
He's gorgeous, and he's such a special beam of light. And you know, for whatever reason, that didn't unfold. And so that is, you know, it's like, it's also what as humanity are we exposing? How much are interracial relations coming out and talking and being able to support one another? You don't really see. I know, you know, when I was walking through Brooklyn with my first lover, who was a hip hop head, and he had dreadlocks, and we were walking the streets of Brooklyn hand in hand and like getting stared. I'd be stared at by Black women, and he'd be stared down by, you know, Indian men, and people just looking at us like we were crazy. There wasn't very much support in terms of, you know, hey man, like that just shows you that you're doing something different and that you're shaking up the norm. You're shaking up the status quo. We're not really raised to look outside of our race in a way that is for love. So I think that the big piece there is the unique individual's code as well. My family, as soon as they met Shophar, they were soft. He had a presence to him that I was like, immediately, I was like, well, that's really strange. Like nobody's even, I'm not getting the phone calls or the texts, or, I mean, maybe also my parents are like, just find somebody. Had this, maybe I've tired them out so much. But my sister said it really well. She's like, he doesn't really give us reason to worry. And it's also because I hadn't done the work. So I was attracting men that reflected the level of work that I had done on my self-worth. So I was attracting abusive, manipulative, and it wasn't, you know, I was first abusive and manipulative for myself and then was attracting that very same thing. So I have to say that there is also something about this, you as people, like y'all found each other and it was a beautiful code that really can't be denied, you know?
Thank you. Yeah. Yeah. You know, what we are representing here is what is happening in society. We are merging. We are merging as people, you know. And another thing I would say to any couple that is coming together, interracial couple, see each other as people and see your families as people first. People. Because when you two were speaking about your mothers and taking your mothers out and doing different things with them, they are women. They're women with souls that enjoy nurturing like we all do, you know, and to be able to nurture each other from the place of soul food, soul nurturing. Everybody knows that. Doesn't matter where you're from. You've tasted soul food. In the form of love. That cannot be denied. Anywhere.
You know, the other thing Suzanne taught me very early on in relationship was we cannot isolate away from our family. You know, I would be very rebellious and I'm like, screw what my family thinks, and, you know, younger phase of my life and more piss and vinegar and more judgmental and, you know, they're backwards and all of that. And she said, you know what, when I'm marrying you, I'm marrying your whole family.
Yes.
And she said, when you're marrying me, whether you think so or not, you're actually going to be with me long term. You're going to be marrying my family. Meaning you're going to you can't stay out of relationship with them, even if you've got stuff with them. And grumbling, my ego went, but then I really got that I have to, when I'm loving my wife, I'm loving her mother, I'm loving her father, I'm loving her brother, her sister, her grandma. And eventually she taught me, Suzanne, through her demonstration of loving my parents, you know, even when they were resistant. You know, I did something very mean that I don't recommend, something crazy I did years ago. There was once my family was very heated and they're like, no, you shouldn't be getting more closer. You can have her as a friend, but marriage will break up and these bad things can happen in relationship. And they had good meaning. And I was like, no. I was very convincing, right? When you're in your 20s, you know, you don't want to hear anything from your parents. And at least I didn't. And so, you know, we got into a bit of a tiff with my parents and they said, no, don't bring her back here and blah, 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 all of this. So I hop in the car, I bring Suzanne right to my house after the argument. And I fibbed. I told her, I said, Suzanne, something miraculous has happened. They love you. They want to speak.
Oh, no.
Whereas they're like this. She comes in the house and says, oh, Mom, Dad, or, you know, Mr. and Mrs. Raja. And they were so taken back by her openness. They start, now my dad loves her. I mean, my dad would rather speak to Suzanne way more than me. And he's got a daughter. He's never had his own daughter, right? So Suzanne is his daughter, and it's really remarkable. But it was that critical moment of recognizing that I must realize that if I'm going to be long-term, I have to open my heart more than just to her. I have to open my heart, release all my charge, my stuff that might come up regarding family dynamics, and I got to keep embracing them as the source of my wife. She came from them. That's been very powerful for me. And now I'm blessed to say I have a very loving relationship for many years with and we don't call them father-in-law and mother-in-law. I'll let Suzanne share more about that.
Yeah, we've gotten rid of this in-law business. Who needs think outlaw, right?
Or it's a legal term, right? Legally.
Yeah. So we don't. I have stopped that. I've nipped that in the bud, because what we refer to them as are in loves. So it's my mother-in-law, my father-in-law, my sister-in-law, my brother-in-law, all of that. Truly. And you know, I'll share a funny story too with Satyen. We're talking about your family life, bring mine into, but Satyen, once again, you know, if that wasn't enough, we went to India for our honeymoon. What a dream. 3 weeks in India. I mean, I never thought I would go there. And Satyen said, that's where we're going for our honeymoon.
Sorry.
That's okay. Dream come true, right? So we go to India now. And one of the first places to visit was Satyen's father's elder brother. So this is the elder. They call him Ada. And that name means, you know, this
He's
is
the grandfather of the family.
This is the man who's, you know, the number one Raja, right? So you want to go to his house and you want to connect with him. What I didn't know was that apparently he, without meeting me, just hearing the story, I guess, of our relating, he was like, if you bring this girl, you know, you're never going to be, you know, you're not going to come into our family, whatever it is he said, some threat, right? And so, of course, that was the first house that we went to, because so we go to the house, and I have married my beloved. Like, all I care about, here it is, I'm married the man of my dreams, you know, and we're off to India together. I mean, I'm just like feeling like Jasmine in you know, the Disney's, I forget even the name of it, but you know, this Disney story, you know, I'm off to India and here I am to meet the family. I'm even wearing the clothes, right? Because it wasn't for anything in particular, except I just was so in love with everything, wearing the clothes, all of this. So we go to Ada's house, and Ada has things in order. I mean, it's just a certain way, right? We get to the house, we knock at the door, and the door opens, and Ada is inside, sitting somewhere. What do? I run into the house, and I run up to him,
Oh,
I grab him by his head. Yeah, you're laughing, right, Kirti? You are laughing. You get the joke of this, or the horror, one or the other. So I run to him, grab him by his head, kiss him on his head. I'm so happy to be here, right? I didn't notice, but no one was breathing. No one was breathing.
Oh.
Everyone was like, everyone was up against the wall. They were like, right, waiting for what Ada was gonna do. And Ada looks at me. No one's breathing. He looks at me. He looks at his wife, and he says, "That is it." He says, "You go to the bank. You take out the papers. You give her all the money. You give her everything. Anything she wants, it's hers."
Oh.
I'm like, what? Yeah. So it was like, he had not expressed that. And like I say, it's people.
Mm-hmm.
It's people. He's a person, a human. I broke all the rules because I didn't know the rules. And good thing I didn't.
Yes. Yeah.
Because that was supposed to happen. And that's what relating like this, that's what love, that's what, when we decide we're going to love no matter what, we break all the damn rules. There are no rules. Who makes the rules? The love is what is lasting. Love is what counts. In the end, that's what makes sense. And so that's the only thing left to do in this crazy world. Love each other to death. Kill each other with love.
Mm-hmm.
Let's do that.
Yeah, let's do that.
Yeah. Let's go there.
I'd love to hear from both of you. What were some of the main challenges you've had in your relationship, and how have you worked through them?
Go for it, Shel. I feel like I shared already. Yeah.
For myself, I think it hasn't really been a major challenge, with her parents, which is fortunate. I mean, I know that there's another level of acceptance that it could be, but I've also heard where it was at with her other. We don't like to say, like, similar to y'all. I love the in-love thing, by the way, the in-loves, and instead of calling them like ex-lovers or ex, our exes, we say past lovers. So I've heard of her past lovers and what they've gone through, and they definitely have been more accepting of me and open. I mean, her mom is asked about when am I going to come back and do qigong with her. So it's progress, And on my side, like with my mom had always just jokingly, half jokingly, I think she was somewhat like, just as long as you don't bring home a white girl, Yeah. And then she's like, I'm just joking, even if you did with that. But no, but as long the way it's worked, they've met Kirti pretty early on. Actually, one of my sisters like 2 weeks in, which is, by the way, that was very new for me. Like this has all been new for me, to open my heart in such a way so quickly. And we've been dating now for 2.5 years. But for her to meet my sisters, I have 4 younger sisters, and to meet my mom. And they love Kirti, so.
Yeah, it's always been that way for me, that the other family usually really loves me. It's my family that I have to deal with, and I think that I'm still managing, honestly. I think the reason why Shophar hasn't really gotten the brunt of it is because it's been 20 years since I've been, navigating this storyline of actually, it's come to the point of redefining my purpose on this planet as a woman, as a Desi woman, growing up in America, that, perhaps me launching my own businesses and me being a change maker could perhaps be equally valuable as having children and getting married. So I think that for me, at a young age, I realized that marriage was my ticket out of the cultural structure. And as a girl, I knew that very quickly, that I would get married to Indian man the way it was really presented to me through Bollywood and through whatever perspective my parents decided to raise me with, because that's really what I was, honestly, let's keep it real. That's what you're really relying on when you're not growing up in India. it was really clear to me. And I just remember thinking like, oh man, okay, well, if marriage is my ticket out, I'm gonna have to get married really quick. And I'm gonna need to make sure I marry who I want to marry. And I was just thinking, I'm gonna get married and I'm just gonna be out of here, because that was really what it was. It's like, I was raised to be marriageable. I was raised to be marriageable. I cooked, I learned how to cook, I learned how to clean. I'm a classical Indian dancer. I had all of the perfect items on the bio data resume. You know, and so that's why it was really heartbreaking for my family to see that I'm actually like, I'm a Black Panther at heart, and I'm about the civil rights movement, and I'm about, you know, gay rights. And, you know, I was just always grew up exploring that. And they just couldn't relate. So with this relationship and this relating with Shophar, it's really been about me. And I've made that conscious choice that it is about me. And I've also, you know, Shophar and I are in a unique type of relating. I was like a serial monogamist. I was trying to marry. I mean, I was raised that way. Like, you know, I thought was raised like the first person you sleep with that's your husband, right? And so I didn't understand how to date. Every guy that I went out on a date with, I was like, okay, well, we'll try to get married now. I didn't understand what it meant to like shop around and figure out what resonates with you. And I think that I'm getting that now, which is interesting. It's kind of like reversed of the typical, I guess, American lifestyle. And Shophar was always an open beam and maintained that. And so then when we met, it was like, I was really excited because I was like, oh, maybe he can show me and I can be inspired by him being such a butterfly, you know, and a bee just visiting different flowers and really
love the way you put that. I love the way you put that.
Being present with each flower, being present with each flower. And honestly, that's always the way I've truly wanted to be, but culturally was not raised to be that way.
Right.
And I think that that's probably why for so many years, the marriage and children thing, it just didn't, like the recipe wasn't right. You know what I'm saying? It just wasn't the right sauce.
Right.
Yeah, and in Hindi we have a term rasa. Rasa. It wasn't the right flavor for me, and I was bumping around because of really my own identity search. So my family's very clear that I'm super protective, done a lot of healing work, and my priority right now is healing with my family. And I know that as I heal myself, my family heals, and they know that he is a part of my healing. So they can take it or leave it. And I think I still stand by that. And if he feels a natural connection with them, he is his own sovereign being. He can do that. And if I feel naturally connected to his family, I'm my own sovereign being. But I am no longer, I have done so much in the past relationships, totally given my whole self to my partner's family. And it's just broken my heart so much to just see my family not do the same for my partners. And so I really made a conscious choice that perhaps this lifetime is about mastering my own sovereignty. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Deep honoring to that.
Yeah, for sure.
This is a type of spiritual warriorship, what you just talked about. The grounding in ourself, the letting go of the seeking of approval of our parents, at the same time we're yearning and wanting our family members to have approval and to have joy, but not being neurotically insistent that they do, and releasing and letting go and surrendering that perhaps they may not be ever, but you'll do your best. You'll continue to be open and positive and hope for connection and oneness, but you're not going to demand it. You're just going to nurture the garden until they smell the roses or they don't. This is the approach Suzanne and I have taken.
I want to add something there too, is that I think a really important piece that has come through for me in the healing, the deep healing, I'd say that's really taken for me the last 5 years. I've been going and emerging out of this, is really getting clear with the ancestral wound that we carry as South Asians, and with the paradigm of the caste system and the paradigm also of arranged marriages according to society's wants and desires, that seeking approval piece. As I've been doing this work and being more open about it, and I've noticed women in my family have actually come forward to talk to me about, whether they're my aunties, my mossies, and they're like telling me like, oh, I was in love with someone before I had my arrangement.
Oh,
Um,
permission to be real.
Exactly. And they are, I feel that even, my mother and my father are going through their own awakening of, they're in their 70s now and they're complete best friends. And I also think that they're having their own awakening of how much do they do for approval and how much do they really truly live their fullest lives as human beings on this planet. So really it's a lesson for all of us as coaches, mentors, parents, guides, that ultimately there is no right or wrong, but just really living your fullest life. And even if your parents disagree, I think that our soul chooses those families for that very reason. So we have that struggle to break through and can really be warriors,
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Shophar, we were chatting earlier about warrior sageship, and I know that's very close to your heart. Would you share about that realm in yourself and what that means to you?
Sure. For me, the warrior is a little different from the soldier in that, the soldier, the way I define it for myself is that it's kind of someone like a hired bullet, like a human bullet. And you just point in a direction and tell it what to do and it does it, But the warrior actually takes time to look inward and to question. And or said differently, I feel like the soldier is kind of more in the intellect, the realm of the intellect. And I grew up, I was raised my name Shophar actually comes from the background of the Hebrew Israelites. So the Black Hebrew Israelites that are up and down the East Coast. And with that, on the tree of life in the Kabbalah, intellect or cunning, cleverness is lower on the tree of life than wisdom and intuition, And so I feel like the soldier is tapping into intellect. And in our society, in this patriarchal society, we have a lot of emphasis on how smart we are, IQs and everything. But the warrior is now in contact with the heart. And so they are tapping into intuition and everything. So that of itself makes you kind of sage-like. To me, a warrior and a sage, you can't separate the two. And my background in traditional Chinese medicine, and learning that too, just like in ancient Europe, they had the knights and they had chivalry. The idea of chivalry, take care of the women and the children and the elderly. And then later on, they added the church on there too for political reasons. But, the original knights, that's what they were about, chivalry. And in ancient China, a gentleman or a knight of a man of a high honor would be able to heal a life and take a life. So to me, there's no difference between the warrior and the sage.
Beautiful, brother.
Oh, wow.
Beautiful. And tell me, how do you live those principles? How do you live those principles and advice to other good men who are looking to live at that depth?
Just check in. So those of you out there, do time and space that are watching, so Kirti and me, we like to use an acronym called VIBE, VIBE. So VIBE is to be vocal. For many of us on the planet, men, women, whatever, we are shut down in the throat. And so for a good man or a God man, add a O or take a O, God man, good man. For a good man, a God man, be able to express and speak from your heart. In traditional Chinese medicine, there's a connection between the tongue and the mouth, the tongue and the heart. And so our heart should be able to speak through the tongue. And the I is for introspection, to introspect, to look inward, to be able to look within ourselves and what's going on. And then it comes through the mouth. The B is for breath. So we take 20,000 breaths a day to bring our awareness to our breath. And then the E is for embody. It's one thing for me to say, Suzanne and Satyen, I appreciate you. It's another thing for it to land physically in the body. It should be a hormone that is now going through my body if I have true appreciation.
Wow. Very beautiful. Very powerful.
Thank you.
And how about yourself, Kirti? What are some, you know, ways that you've been living this practically that you can share with other women who are listening here?
Yeah, so for me, it's the body, really the physical form. I'm understanding how we process emotion as human beings on the planet, and really looking at the systems of conditioning through the patriarchy, and understanding that our men need healing too. Shophar was the first person to tell me that on our first date. You know, I took full advantage that this guy was going to hang out with me, and I was dealing with some other crazy shit that was going on. And I felt very alone, and said, oh, this guy's he's going to give me his ear. I had a perfect opportunity to dump everything out. Like, he's such a nice guy. And my ego just went for it. And, you know, I was just complaining about my relationships and what I was navigating and what I was dealing. And I don't know if can I use, what kind of language is acceptable here?
You can say anything here. It's all right.
Oh, I even was wondering, like, do I have a broke pussy was my question. Like, I'm very clear about my pussy, but is it broken? Because I can't seem to beam in the type of connection and work that my pussy truly craves and knows that she wants to express. And, you know, Shophar just said, you know, men need healing too. That was the first time I ever even thought about that. I was like, oh my God, I've just been all about men this and men that and men do this. And clearly from my own upbringing and being probably somewhat of an ultra feminist who didn't understand the setup of the system, and that patriarchy injures and wounds our men as well, if not worse, because then it's really hard for them to show up for us, and it makes it hard for us to receive their love when they do show up for us. So for me, my biggest tool is getting really clear on understanding my emotional process that has been conditioned by a system, that has been conditioned by a culture. And so understanding triggers really well and being able to track my triggers. I have a saying that is, my triggers are my trailheads. My triggers are treasures. You know, growing up being emotional was not acceptable. Oftentimes, if you're loud, you're seen as a loud woman of color, depending on, you know, which communities you roll. So we're constantly taught to shut our mouths. And, you know, there's certain traditions I grew up with that definitely didn't empower women. So I blamed, you know, my father and my brother, instead of really seeing that they were a product of their own, you know, upbringing by their mothers and fathers, right? So some of the practices is really helping women understand, where do these triggers come from? Our childhood patterns, they come from somebody else is actually reflecting what our truest wants and desires are. So a lot of times with men, it's because we do feel equally able. However, we're not in a system that supports that. So really getting clear with that. Or sometimes we're triggered by other women, right? They think that the other woman's going to take our man. A woman might walk down the street and you're threatened by her, and your man has not even looked at her. But we've grown up with, like you said, we have these Disney movies and all of these movies that create these really awkward projections of what love and attention from a man and what love is supposed to look like. I mean, Bollywood, I still have serious Bollywood brain. And I have to constantly rewire myself. You know, you can talk about it. How many Bollywood movies, you know, do you see from our generation that don't have a scene where a woman is getting raped or beat? I mean, it's very common. It's so normalized. Where the woman is yelled at and talked down to. I mean, the artistic films, you'll see some different stuff and you'll see some other things, but really the mainstream was so much that way. So tracking triggers is a big one for me, to really understand where did that come from, and setting up containers to talk about it. Because oftentimes when we don't do the setup of like, oh man, I'm really processing something, sometimes I'm learning like, he might not really want to have the capacity, nor does he have the capacity because he's had a different upbringing than I have. And I think for me, what really attracts me to African-American culture and in the Black communities that I roll with is that nothing has ever seemed like too much. Whereas if I brought my stuff sometimes, you know, as an Indian woman who grew up in a very racist white town, you know, I sometimes talk to other Indians and they're like, I don't see that. I don't feel the race thing, you know? And I think that's because of class. A lot of Indians, you know, that chose to immigrate, especially on the West Coast, there's a different class of Indians that are here. So like my family being working class, growing up in a really white trash, quote unquote, town, I had a lot of anger, and I didn't know where to put it. So the trigger piece is huge. And then body. I'm all about the body. Growing up as a classical Indian dancer, you know, my teachers never told me this is your feet connecting to the earth, and these beat patterns, these rhythmic cycles of multiples of 4 and 3 are nature's codes. And the way we position our body is always in 180 degrees or 360. I mean, the sacred geometry that goes into classical Indian dance is just phenomenal. So the body, I'm really blessed. I feel like my spirit stepped into my body. My body did the work because it was a cultural practice, but I was having huge tantric awakenings in high school. I was having orgasmic experiences with no sexual contact, from just singing the sounds. And I was getting huge energetic releases. In fact, my first love ever, we were together for 3 years and we didn't have intercourse. And it was really because there was one thing, I wanted us to be married, like I was conditioned, but then there was also this other piece where I knew that there's so much to unlock outside of that. And that really came from dance. So I teach movement medicine. And it's really, how is moving our body a way to access the chakras, the energy centers through our own existence. And it actually allows us to go from the Muladhara root, the root of why our soul chose this physical form, to our race, our class, our ethnic, to the land we were born on, all the way up to Sahasrara, the 7th chakra, which is how my understanding of who I was born to be is actually healing for others, that I am just in existence. And so I think that the body, this physical form, is a pleasurable experience when we can tap in to the unique intricacies of our shadows and our wounds. And so, yes, I would say I'm a Kali devotee, and I am a Shiva devotee who is ready to flip the script on the Sanskritized and the light skinicized, and we tend to, in the Hindu religion, really put up certain deities and goddesses, and we don't pay attention to the part of our Hindu philosophy that also asks us to dive deep into the shadow. And so that's my work. I love shadow work. It's been my amrit. It's really been my access to the divine nectar.
Thank you. Thank you so much. You know, I'm gonna jump onto this piece about movement and the body. First of all, what was the Indian classical dance that you studied? Was it Bharatanatyam?
I actually studied Kathak first.
Okay.
More of a northern Indian style dance, and then I moved to Odissi, that is eastern. But Bharatanatyam is the south, and I love Bharatanatyam. So yeah, I know exactly what you're talking about.
All right, so let's go on to the Bharatanatyam, and then let's take it from there, because I've actually studied a little bit of Bharatanatyam. And the reason I'm bringing this up, Bharatanatyam is South Indian classical dance. And for me, it's a lot of using feet. The feet are like, the earth is a drum, and the feet are the hands beating on the drum of the earth. Or the earth is beating on the feet of the person that is, you know, it's being the earth is speaking to the human, and the human is responding. And there is a dynamic connection that's happening between the two. I'm bringing this up because I have studied Indian classical dance. I also study African dance. I also study Jamaican dance, Caribbean dance. Many different types of dances make sense to me. And if you study, you go back and you see there is a Hindu, there's the Om, the sign, the Om in Hindu philosophy. And it means the original sound.
Mm.
as the original sound. And why is that important, the original sound? Because it's the original heartbeat.
Mm.
And why is that important? Because everyone has a heartbeat.
Mm.
And when you can tap into the beat and the rhythm of each and every human, you can change the dance. You have a dance, and it's a dance of the heart, and you don't understand the language. Well, everyone understands the beat. Everyone has a heartbeat. So it's tuning into the heartbeat of each human and changing the dynamic and changing the conversation, shifting it up. Okay, you know what? This beat has gone on just too long. It is boring now. It is time for some new music. And that's what this is all about. I really believe that we are magnetized to each other for a reason. We're magnetized to each other because a new song, a new dance, a new form is taking place. And we're no longer willing to settle for the old school. The old school was good, but you know what? We're creating new music now. And not to deny that that the new music came from pieces of the ancients. We give homage to that. But progress means there's a new beat.
Oh, I love it.
And so it's time now for us to groove together, And for those that think they can't dance, there's an African saying, and it's, if you can speak, you can sing, and if you can walk, you can dance. So there is no excuse for that. And I'm sure that there's a saying in every culture saying the same thing. It's just to tap into that beat. It's just to tap into that groove, and to know that as long as we have a heartbeat, as everyone does, it's just time now to open up to that and to dance to the dance of your own rhythm, and you will be followed or not, and everybody get together.
Right.
That's where we're going.
Yeah, I mean, I when I went to college in Santa Cruz, which is Northern California, near San Francisco. It's the first time that I'd actually been in a dance studio. My whole training was, studying in someone's garage on concrete. It's the first time I felt a wood-sprung floor, and I was like, what is this? Like, wow. My whole body was like, I already felt vibrate, and I was like, wow. So feeling vibration against concrete was quite challenging, but with the wooden sprung floor, it was like, oh wow, this is completely new. And the first class was, somebody took me to an Afro-Brazilian dance class. And when I heard the drums, and it was like Bhangra, from where we come from, the 1-2-3 pattern was like 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3, 1-2-3. I just was like, and like after the first class, they asked me, where did you train? I was like, it's my first class. But it was so liberating to move my hips, because classical Indian dancers, we're not allowed to move our hips. And even Bharatanatyam, the torso is also strict. In Odissi, it was one of the first, Lasya, it was one of the first classical Indian dancers said, okay, we can be sensual. Let's move our torso with the hands, and we can tell this story too. And when I went to West African, and Afro-Brazilian, and Afro-Cuban, it was so wonderful to also explore moving my hips, shaking my ass, and owning this part of my sensual being, that I started to realize, like, wait a minute, I love classical Indian dance, but what's the story here? It's a very upper caste practice in India. To be artists, depending on your region, it's a very upper caste thing. Because it costs money to train, and to have those gurus to come into your home and train you. And so I just started to go deeper and deeper. And one of my lovers had exposed me to Ivan Van Sertima and Ranoko Rashidi's African presence in America and African presence in Asia. And so when I studied that text by the Moors, I had chills. It explained what was going on, which is what you're talking about the actual African presence that is in India, that we are not talking about, but it is in all of what we do in terms of our music and our culture and our food. I mean, if you go to an Ethiopian restaurant and you go to an Indian restaurant, please do not tell me that you do not see the similarities. I mean, come on, right? And Brother Satyen, you were talking about Uganda. I was like, damn, straight Mississippi masala is your story. That was the first movie my family went to, like that went to. My sister was dating a mixed brother at that time, and my dad was just like, why do we need to come to the movie? We have Mississippi masala in the house. You know? And I remember I was just like, oh my God, I love this movie. I was so young, and Mira Nair did such a good job of painting those perspectives, right? And yeah, I think that's where we are going into a rebirthing, you know, bringing it back to Kali, bringing it back to the sadhana, bringing it back to the warrior sage. It's like we have to be willing to go through the labor of the rebirth. And that means that we all have to go within ourselves and see where are the similarities, where is the higher self present, and really question the ego that always seeks to separate.
That's right. That's right.
That is so beautiful and so rich and so alive with life experience and alive with like the potency of what's happening right now on this planet, which is either we devolve and create more separation, or we come together with even more greater unity and love and acceptance of the full spectrum of our life experiences, our backgrounds, our ethnicities, our cultural richness, as well as the unity consciousness that is our oneness. I want to thank you both for just sharing so fully, and the passion and the joy that you have between you. I'm really looking forward to deepen our own friendship, and I'm really blessed, and you're really blessed to know and feel good to know that you're serving people in the world in such a beautiful way. How can our friends get in touch with what you're up to? Can you share about that and get in touch with both of you and what you're up to?
Well, for me right now, I am on Instagram in terms of social media, and my Instagram account is Dilse, Dilse, .Kirti dance, and Dilse means from the heart. And so I teach all heart-based practices, from cooking to moving your body to homeschooling and unlearning any conditional education that we have going on, not teaching us the true history of our people. So you can find me there on Instagram. I post so much of my stuff there. And then I also have my website, which is dilseculture.com. And I think a project that we're really excited about is that we've been approached by a yoga studio, and we're going to be offering our course called Racism. And it's bringing up, each letter of the word racism stands for something. So we bring up the A to bring up awareness to the rest of the letters. And the R stands for race. The I stands for intellectualism and intellect. The S is for sexism. And then the M is for materialism. And really what we're seeking to do is talk about justice through the eyes of the ego and the higher self, and bringing consciousness, race consciousness, to the spiritual communities that we run in, where we see so much being misrepresented innocently or purposefully, but really helping those, especially what we're seeing is there's a lot of conscious people who really want to do good, but they have a hard time understanding, spiritual bypass versus the sage warrior that we're talking about. So we're really excited, and that we're offering that September 29th, and it's online. And we have a series of spiritual exercises as well as constructive conversations on race politics and dynamics to really help us bridge the gap right now on the planet. So I wanted to just offer that too.
Fantastic. Okay, thank you. We'll make sure that goes in the comments section so folks can follow along, all right?
Awesome.
Shophar, what's in your heart to share to complete today?
I feel complete. I appreciate y'all having us out. I think as far as other offerings that we have that resonate, that I just like for the family to know, is that we have one called Hip Hop Kundalini. We're not able to do that right now in person. That's really the powerful thing. But so for people just to follow Kirti on her Instagram, and mine is Fo Show Energy Work. So it's at and then FO _ show SHO _ energy and then work. there should be a space between each word. That's all I was trying to say. But for show is of course the urban slang, for sure. But also in Chinese, with bad American pronunciation, is also Buddha hands. And so the whole idea of Buddha hands. And so Kirti and me do intimate relating for couples, sensual emotional exchange, SEX, sensual emotional exchange. So we're just looking to help people evolve and expand what they think sex is. So yeah, we're just excited with the different offerings and stuff.
And your YouTube channel.
And I just started doing coaching with men, Chi Up. So yeah, a lot of good things, man.
Sure you put those in the comments section so all our friends can have access to that.
Yeah, we will.
Thank you so much. Suzanne, anything in your heart to share to complete today?
Oh, this has just been delicious. Spending time with all of you. I was going to say I'm visiting you. I'm visiting Facebook from my parents' home in Ontario. So I am in the cuddle of my parents' space. My beloved Satyen is back home in Vancouver, and you all are in San Diego. And whoever is watching, beloved soul, from wherever you are, I hope that one of the things that you take away today from our connection is just how human this all is, this love, this passion for life, this desire to be as authentic and real and uniquely ourselves as we can be, as we come together and we try to navigate this beautiful existence that we have. And with the times that there are, as the times are so uniquely uncertain, I hope that one of the things that you take away is the possibilities that you have to change the rhythm of the way things are and have it be one that we can all dance to, that we can all join in, and that we come together and know that really ultimately we are one human family. And yes, just that is my piece.
Thank you. Thank you, family. Thank you, warrior sages. Kirti, thank you, sister Benna, for your beautiful life experience and candid shares and evocation of spirit and truth. Thank you, brother Shophar, for sharing the embodied wisdom and joy and beingness that exudes so freely and joyfully through your being. It's an inspiration as well. Thank you, all friends, all our love. Let's continue to ignite passion, live freedom, and embody love.
Embody love.
All right, y'all.